January 6th meeting of the City of Reno Redevelopment Agency Advisory Board to order at 11:01 a.m. on Monday, January 26th, 2026. Want to just confirm that public notice was made for this meeting and all of the relevant materials are on the City of Reno portal. And ask for a roll call. You want
me to call?
Do you want to Ashley?
No, not at all. Chair Klein is absent at this time. Vice Chair Robertson?
Present. Adams,
absent at this time. Harris, absent at this time. Kenny?
Here.
Oliverio? Here. Connie?
Here.
Stitzer?
Here.
Van Houten?
Here.
Mr. Vice Chair, you do have a quorum of the redevelopment agency.
I'm sorry, can you do that roll call a little bit more slowly? I'm trying to catch up. I have Mr. Stitzer is there, and also Mr. Van Houten is there.
Yes, correct.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's all right. The old habit, I roll pretty fast. Sorry.
And also in the room, I'm assuming, I know Brian's there and Caitlin's there. Anyone else?
You have Ashley Attorney, Assistant City Manager for the record.
Great.
Katie.
I'm sorry?
You have member Kenny?
Yes, I do. I just got hung up on halfway through, but I'm good now. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to item 8.2, the approval of the agenda for today. I'm seeking a motion to approve the agenda as you've seen it with just a single business item B1.
Mr. Vice Chair, would you like to public comment before you do approval of the agenda?
Good idea. Sorry. If there are any public comments, this is the time to express them. At the beginning of this meeting, there will be another opportunity at the end for public comments. They are limited to 3 minutes for each commentator. Is seeing any public comments online and any in the room?
Nope.
Not at this time. So we'll move on from A2 to A3, the approval of the agenda now, and seek a motion to approve today's agenda for January 26th.
Move to approve. Member Pawnee, move to approve.
Jay Kenny, second.
Thank you. All approve?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? It's been approved. Moving on to item A4, the staff liaison report in the, will you be doing that?
I will cover that today. Yes, it's Brian is not in here. Ashley Attorney, Assistant City Manager for the record. Just to note for the other members, Member Harris is present with us online now. First thing for staff liaison update on behalf of Brian McArdle, who's finishing up another meeting. Thank you to the board who were able to come to a special meeting for this item. This ran slightly out of cadence because this is going before the City Council and Redevelopment Agency on Wednesday, January 28th, and we wanted an opportunity to hear from this board on the term sheet before we took it to the RDA. So thank you again for coming forward. Next thing to note is that your regularly scheduled Redevelopment Advisory Board meeting will be held on February 2nd. That agenda will be posted shortly. We've got some heavy months coming from you based off of a lot of business that the agency is doing. So thank you for your time, and we do our best to be respectful of it as we move through. With that, Mr. Vice Chair, I don't have any other pressing updates to give today.
Thank you so much, Assistant City Manager Attorney. Moving on then to item business items B1, of which the primary purpose of this meeting is. Do we need to read the entirety of that item?
You do not, because it's posted online, sir.
Very good. So with that, I think we're starting with a overall presentation from staff, and then we'll hear from Mr. Edelstein as well.
Yes, thank you for that. Ashley Attorney, Assistant City Manager for the record. As Mr. Vice Chair Robertson indicated, we will review the presentation for the term sheet with Nevada Land today. I'll turn it over to the board for any questions you may have. We do have Eric Edelstein, President of the Reno Aces available for any questions that I may not be able to answer for you. Okay. This aligns with the Reno City Council's multiple of their strategic priorities, the first being fiscal sustainability and economic and community development. This presentation will look similar to how we will present it to the Reno City Council this week. So you will see some movement and similarities between the Reno City Council side and the RDA side. I'll do my best to differentiate them from a body standpoint, but this deal will go before both bodies. Next. Can you go back one slide? I feel like maybe it skipped. No? Okay. Great. We'll just skip and then to bring this board up to speed, baseball has a very, very long, complex history in the city of Reno. We did this presentation for the city council back in November, but to bring everybody up to speed, in 2006, the city of Reno was interested in a AAA baseball team coming to the city, but we had no stadium and no place to put them and no team ownership. So they looked for a developer to build a stadium and procure not only a baseball team, but really to build out what was envisioned to be a significant downtown economic development area known as the baseball district. This deal is incredibly complex. I have multiple 6-inch binders on up in my office that go over the history of this. And this deal took a very long time to put together and included multiple land acquisitions, swaps, sales, relocation, including a downtown fire station. And ultimately, an agreement was made in 2007 that a baseball park would be built. We would have a AAA team and the district would eventually be built out. Within this agreement, an important thing to note is that the city of Reno agreed to pay $50 million to the developers of the ball stadium in order to offset the cost of construction. Construction of the park was much more than $50 million. However, this was going to be Reno's share in order to attract them to the area. The stadium construction started right after all of the agreements were executed and continued on through the Great Recession. As we know, 2008 hit and Reno was hit harder, faster, and longer than almost any other community in the country. And despite that, the ballpark continued through its construction and ultimately opened up for its first game in April of 2009. As we noted, the $50 million that was originally agreed to in this deal was supposed to be paid from the increase in tax increment in the redevelopment areas. As we know, with the recession, we actually dropped into what we often call negative increment in the RDA 1 area specifically. This came about for multiple reasons. One, the way that property tax just was in a massive free fall in Washoe County. Secondary had to do with a lack of diversification in the properties in that area. That led to a lot of obsolescence filing and property taxes. Ultimately, what this meant is that the city of Reno did not end up meeting their obligation and no payments were made to the developer through this time. This led to a resettlement and conversation needing to happen in 2012 and then finalizing in 2013, in which the Nevada Land as the developer agreed to take a reduction of the original obligation that was promised to them from $50 million down to $30 million. An important thing to note during this resettlement agreement also is that the obligation transitioned from a redevelopment only obligation to now being backed by the city's general fund. Why this matters is that it took many years for us still to come out of those negative increment spaces, and the city's general fund has in fact paid this $1 million obligation multiple years. Fast forwarding to 2025. Staff received direction from both the Reno City Council and the Redevelopment Agency to look at existing contracts and agreements for various reasons. We were instructed to identify budget savings, opportunities for renegotiation, and better service delivery. Through this process, staff discovered that there is a misalignment between the ACES operating agreement, which is actually set to expire in 2029, and the resettlement agreement and lease, which ends in 2043. This creates a massive gap in the time in which we could potentially have a vacant lighted ballpark with no team in it. Staff was directed by both agency and city council in November to renegotiate all agreements with the ACEs, is what we call them as a colloquial term. There's the legal entity, but we will reference it throughout this presentation as ACEs or baseball, and then bring back a negotiated term sheet to both entities for adoption. That leads us to where we are now. Staff has engaged with the Reno Aces for negotiation for a period of multiple months now and has reached a draft term sheet in which has been submitted to this body and as part of your packet. It covers multiple components, and we will talk about those today. So as a reminder why we're here, we've got a misalignment between when the ACEs are legally obligated to play baseball and when the city is legally obligated to pay them for building the original stadium. Going over the proposed terms that are in front of you today, there are a lot more specific details and the nuance in the term sheet that's agreed to, or excuse me, that is part of your packet that we're looking for recommendations from this body, but we will go over them in high terms. The very first one is a non-relocation agreement through 2049. This secures the ACES AAA team through 2049, securing baseball in our community for another 23 years. The second proposed term is a capital investment from the ACES Nevada Land to a total of $40 million. 50% of this will be within the first 5 years. The remaining 50% will be done within 10 years. This is in a redevelopment area, and so we would expect increment to come directly to the redevelopment agency from this $40 million. The third is the transfer of the stadium and the land to Nevada Land. When the resettlement agreed, there was a very complex agreement in which Nevada Land currently owns the land that the stadium sits on. The City of Reno owns the stadium itself. We lease it to each other, and then we lease it to the ACEs, creating a very complex circular deal. And what is proposed in front of you today is to transfer the stadium to Nevada Land, and this allows them to be able to mortgage the stadium to work on that capital investment in and around the ballpark. The fourth term is Nevada Land has agreed to maintain 100% of the stadium and the land up to MLB standards. This ensures that we do not have a blighted product that is sitting downtown. We understand that things may change as conditions also come and go in the market. However, we felt it was very important, and they agreed with this, that there is a land and stadium clawback. If there's an uncured breach of contract, the land and the stadium will revert back to the City of Reno, and this would come with a clean title, ensuring that there's no mortgage that the city would be holding to. Next is property tax. This is a status quo term. However, we felt it important to note. Property tax is currently being paid by the Reno Aces as they are possessory interest of the stadium. This would continue, and that is paid into the redevelopment agency. They also would like to reserve the stadium authority rights in which up to $100,000 annually can be paid back for capital investments into the stadium. This was an agreement made between the ACEs and Washoe County. This up to $100,000 comes from the Washoe County portion received of taxes, not the City of Reno and not the redevelopment agency. So neutral for us, but important to note. Next term is what's referenced as a home run provision for sale. If they sell the stadium within the next 5 years, the city will share in that profit. This diminishes over time each year, and the idea is that the capital investment will be showing up at the same time. This also ensures that they don't make a profit on a city asset that was transferred over to them in a short amount of time. The eighth point is we allow for 5 times a year for city use inside the stadium, and the city will pay the cost. This is similar to current deal states that we are allowed up to 12 times per year. To my knowledge, in at least the last 11 years, the city has never done this. However, we felt an important point to maintain just in case there's a future need for it. The next one is the Tourism Improvement District continuation. This is a status quo point from the city perspective and a redevelopment agency. One of the original points that was made through the baseball district and tourism district is the TID space that goes through 2029. Any sales tax that's generated from the area goes back to the developer to help them offset operating agreements. These are approved at legislative level, and we have no change with this. The next is transfer right. The team may sell and the city will not impede, and the new owner they must take over all contractual obligations. So any agreement that we enter to from this renegotiation, any new owner would be subject to every single provision. And if they breach, then the entire contract would be null and void. Next is naming rights. Nevada Land maintains the naming rights to the stadium. Greater Nevada Field is the current name. The next one is the $1 million obligation annually through 2043. This is a status quo in the sense that we believe that this obligation is currently due. This does state that if the city fails to pay and we do not cure within 30 days, the entire agreement is null and void. The last one, and this is something that was a very important point from the Reno City Council and the Redevelopment Agency that they brought up multiple times over the years to me, has been the de-obligation of the city's general fund. With this renegotiation, this would transition the $1 million payment to come from the redevelopment agency totally, and it will no longer be backed by the city's general fund.
I've got a question on that. Kurt
Yeah.
Stitzer for the record. So it's my understanding that prior to one of the amendments, there was like a $50 million payment back that wasn't able to be paid in 08 and for a few years thereafter, and it restructured to $30 million.
Correct.
So the ownership group already wrote down about 20 million.
Correct.
And if we de-obligate the city's general fund, what in the event that there's another big downturn and the RDA can't afford to do that? There's no security.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that being addressed, or is it?
No security for the developer.
Yeah.
So then I smile because Eric's in the room. What I would say to that is a risk that the developer has chosen to take on by agreement to this term.
Okay.
We believe that based off of what we see with the future runway of the areas, that this won't be a problem. But this is something that it is a known risk to Herb Simon. He obviously took on that risk beforehand. And as you noted, took a $20 million haircut. So there's potential, but this was one of the points that was negotiated and they've agreed to take on that risk.
Okay.
Mike Van, for the record, got one follow-up question on that. The RDA budget that were presented with a few meetings ago, I can't really remember the exact details. Was the $1 million payments baked into those numbers already, or is it going to be an addition? Because I know things are kind of tight for RDA 1 in the next few years.
Great question. It's already baked in.
Okay.
And so the budget that was presented to this body for your recommendation to the RDA that you approved and that they subsequently approved, that $1 million is included in that and will continue to be budgeted in. Okay. So no change to the agency from an overall cost standpoint.
Gotcha. I have one.
Jay Kenny for the record, just piggybacking on Kurt as well. Going back to during 2008, how many years did the city not pay them as well in a row?
All of them. So there were no payments made until it was 5 years. So the agreement,
Mr. Simon ate those as well.
That is correct. So he received no payment until the first payment was issued in 2013.
Is the Colin Robinson for the record that at the time that the agreement was resettled?
That's correct. So the resettlement came before the Reno City Council and the Redevelopment Agency in 2012. That's when the agreement was made to change from 50 million to 30 million. And then there was an additional amendment that was made to it, small but important from a legal standpoint. And that was executed in 2013. Didn't change the overall obligation, but we note it just so that way you have the dates correct.
And Mike Van Houten, for the record, the reason those payments didn't happen was because the sales tax district wasn't producing enough sales tax?
No, it's because it's the increment. So it's the actual redevelopment fund wasn't creating anything. Because those were very dark days. So the tax base dropped so low that there was no tax increment being created. So the sales tax is a separate component, but this was the property tax in the area in which redevelopment, that's our entire funding source, is just property tax. So the property tax dropped below the base. So we were unable to meet that obligation.
Gotcha. But we don't expect that to happen again, right?
We do not. No, based off of the forecast that we have seen, we have internal calculations. We check with the county assessor, and then we actually have a third party that we've engaged every few years, and we have them track the runway of what we're seeing based off of known projects coming in. And we do not see that happening. And in fact, we're seeing really positive numbers show up in RDA 1. Some things are coming online a bit quicker than we actually thought, which is great news. So that's something that will be back to this body in March to go over what we believe the proposed budget will be.
Jay Kenny for the record as well. But Mike, do we know what kind of the cost, an annual cost that the Reno Aces pay just to take care of that facility? What type of cost, in case we were to have to take it back, what the city would have to then pay?
In order to maintain the stadium.
Correct.
I think we can defer to Eric Edelstein, president of the Aces, and he can answer that question.
Sure. Eric Edelstein for the record, about $5 million in annual operating expenses and another, call it 2 to 4 in capital expenses on an typical annual year.
Okay, thank you.
Sarah Harris for the record. Question about if it were to sell, contracts and everything go over and the new owners were to default, the recourse for that default is the stadium comes back to the RDA. Is that correct?
That is correct. It would likely come back to the city. We'll determine that in the final agreements. But it would be the stadium and the land would both revert back.
Okay.
And do we have an appraisal? Sorry, Kurt Stitzer for the record. Do we have an appraisal on the value of the stadium currently?
We do not have a current value. One thing to note is from an industry perspective, most useful lives of stadiums are somewhere around the 25 to 30 year mark if they've been maintained well. So we do know that we are headed towards the other end of useful life without those capital expenses being put in. And we anticipate that in the end of this agreement, if we were not to renegotiate this, the city would be held with an asset that would only cost us money to demo at that point, and it would not have useful life or value.
Michael Pine question. So we have about 18 million left on the city payment obligation?
We do, yes.
That amount's not changing?
That amount is not changing, not proposed to change, no.
And does that come from RDA 1 source or can it come from any art redevelopment source?
So right now it is, the way that council has directed it to be spent is it will be paid out of RDA 2 until 2035, at which RDA 2 sunsets, and then it will transition to RDA 1 until 2043 when 1 sunsets.
Okay. So there's alignment in.
Correct. There's alignment with the terms, yes. Does not extend any terms, does not change, and does not outlive the life of the areas.
Okay. And I saw in the term sheet it talked about those payments being senior to what? Are they senior to existing RDA debt obligations or?
They would not legally be allowed to be senior to existing debt. They would be junior to that first and foremost because those are existing, but they would be senior to subsequent if the agency decided to take on bonds for additional projects or if there were other agreements made, but.
Okay. And what year did you say RDA 2 was paying until?
2035. And then 1 will take over beginning in 36 and pay until 43. And it sunsets, the area sunsets, as well as the financial obligation from the original.
Kara Harris for the record. If there was a legislative change with regards to extensions on RDA 1 or RDA 2, would that change the course of this deal?
It will not change the course of the deal. It would be an opportunity for the redevelopment agency to determine if they wanted to continue to pay out of RDA 2 instead. That obviously frees up some opportunity for capments in RDA 1 with that funding. But it would not change the terms of the deal because ultimately this deal is made with the redevelopment agency and it is the agency that will pay that $1 million. It will be up to the RDA to determine from a budgetary standpoint the fund.
Kara Harris for the record. This might be a question for Eric and it can wait till the end if you think it needs to be. Is there best practices for end of life? And what does that traditionally look like with ownership versus if it were to dissolve and come back to the city?
I think member Harris is asking, Colin Robinson for the record, Eric, that what if any kind of end of life plan would there be for the stadium under the terms of this agreement?
43
49.
after.
Understand.
Yeah.
Eric Edelstein, for the record, I have no idea. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that's not been part of the discussion as to what happens in 2049. You know, depending on where the world exists at that point.
Member Harris, is that your question?
Yes, it was just if there is and has there been and is there best practices of end of life of stadiums, just in your experience, just out of curiosity, not Eric, what I'm understanding is it's not a part of this plan. You are, the plan is to continue operating.
For Eric Edelstein, for the record, I mean, at the moment, yes, it would be planned to continue operating. I mean, there are instances of adaptive reuses in stadiums, conversions to open up for you know, rectangle field sports to you know, there's other, you know, modifications that can be made for maybe, you know, if baseball isn't as exciting in 2049 and there's something else that people want to see more, there's ways to adapt stadiums. Some have been changed into hotels, apartments, parks. Lots of different things have been done over time. Some have just been straight demoed for whatever is in need at that moment as well. But yeah, again, not something that we've we've really taken any active contemplation in.
Okay, transitioning to our last couple of slides here. I think everyone on this board is very aware of the economic impact of baseball is really paramount. You see this in many communities. What a professional stadium can do for a downtown activation is really something that can't be understated. The Aces is currently responsible for bringing hundreds of thousands of people into our downtown core annually. They employ more than 500 people. And as Eric mentioned previously, on top of the annual operating, they really contribute to an incredible amount of GDP and spending in the downtown area. People come down for a ball game, they go to dinner, they bring their kids, there's parking, they go into local shops. And as we see that capital investment into the areas in and around the ballpark, we anticipate to see more of that. Also, the Simons Group, they have invested more than $10 million in capital improvements to the Aces Stadium since 2022. Recommendation before you today is that we recommend that the agency give a recommendation of approval for the proposed term sheet with Nevada Land and Reno Aces for renegotiation of all applicable agreements and authorization for the executive director of the agency to execute any necessary and appropriate agreements and documents to effectuate the modifications and restructuring set forth in the term sheets. Long recommendation followed by a short motion, which is to approve staff recommendation. At this time, Mr. Vice Chair, we're happy to take any additional questions, discussion from the board, anything we can do to answer questions.
Kurt Stitzer, for the record, you know, I kind of view this as a win-win-win for everybody. I mean, there's some shared risks and some different things that sounds like both parties totally understand and are willing to agree to. So, you know, I don't see how this couldn't be a positive for everybody in the long term and moving forward. So I would like to make the motion to approve the staff recommendation.
Jay Kenny, I'll second that motion.
Got some questions if we could have questions still.
I think we've got quite a bit of discussion I think to have, but we have a motion on the table, so we can, I think, entertain that discussion in the midst of the table at the motion on the table.
Michael Pani, actually, there's a provision there for $40 million of new equity contributions. It's not really specific where, but I get the gist. The intent is downtown. Would it be possible in the agreement to identify that location, whether it's a map or something, just the areas that it could be? Because I would like that money to stay downtown.
There is a map of the ballpark district.
There's a map of the ballpark district. To your point, we would require that to have to be in a redevelopment area.
Okay.
So it wouldn't even be, it would be.
RDA2 goes pretty far.
It does, that's fair.
But I'd like it to stay in the downtown core if staff.
If possible. Okay.
Yeah.
That's something that we can note through the final agreements. I would imagine that is the intent, but we can solidify that based off of where the current land ownership of Mr. Simons and Nevada Land is. It is directly adjacent to the ballpark.
Yeah. And if that's not the intent, I think that's it's important
That is an important.
understand where the
Absolutely.
possibility this would go.
Thank you.
Speaking for me personally, I'd like it to stay downtown.
Okay.
The other question I had is the $40 million, maybe it's for Eric, is this equity, debt, combination of both? Do you know the source of those funds?
Sure, Eric LLC for the record, I don't think we fully identify, I think it's a combination of equity and debt. And, you know, the intention is that a minimum commitment was just to have a minimum commitment, and that, you know, that we would be able to hopefully achieve more over time than that minimum. But a combination at start to satisfy the terms would be our intent.
The other suggestion I would make is that if there is debt on the stadium, that those funds be used for stadium improvements. In other words, they won't use the stadium as equity collateral for offsite improvements, since there's a possibility it might revert back. Well, I have one more question on the transfer to a new owner, and maybe this is a question for Eric. What approvals are required? Are there approvals from Major League Baseball if we were to sell to a new owner? And is there some kind of inquiries that the financial bona fides of that new owner?
Yes, Eric Edelstein for the record. Yes, Major League Baseball has a really intensive ownership vetting process. So the financial is just the very beginning. It's a full background check, character, competence, quality of individual. They vet them. Major League Baseball has a very high bar to achieve to own a team in the world. So yes, they would all have to pass through that to be approved.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure we know what we're getting if there were a sale.
Colin Robertson for the record. There's a follow-up to that because it sort of ties into item number 7 in the terms of the home run provision. So my understanding is that in the event of a sale to an alternate ownership group that would go through this process, up through a 5-year time span from the passage of the revised agreement, the city would benefit from that sale somehow.
I think that applies just to the stadium itself, not necessarily the whole team.
No, I understand.
Right.
Yeah. But the property.
Mhm.
But then the city would still be on the hook through 2043 for those payments on an annual basis, whether it's sold or if it did sell to another group.
Correct, based off of the original obligation we originally agreed to pay $50 million for that stadium. Interestingly enough, the first deal, we agreed to pay them $50 million, and they were supposed to have ownership of the stadium at the end of that deal. The original 2007 deal did not have the stadium coming to city ownership, even though we contributed $50 million towards that.
One last follow-up question, and I don't want to try to insert myself in negotiations because I know how those go, but just a kind of a comment for you to think about, maybe both sides to think about. In the default provisions, if the city failed to make the payment, right now it provides that the Aces would have the ability to negate all of their obligations, plus still sue for the balance of what's owed. It seems to me that probably should be an either or, because the only reason you're paying those amounts is for the commitments. Granted, it would start with a default from the city, but just something for maybe staff to consider and explore those default provisions if there's some flexibility there. But that was the only comments I had.
Member Harris has her hand up online.
Not many.
Oh, sorry. Member Oliveria.
Hi, Nettie Oliveria for the record. Eric, could you tell us what plans there are for the historic freight house?
Sure, Eric Edelstein for the record. At the moment, there are no plans for the historic freight house. We've not actively pursued that site for redevelopment.
Mike Van Houten for the record, just following up on Nettie, I guess is more of a comment and a strong urge for the RDA board and Eric is I would love to see that freight house develop. I know it can't be baked into this agreement, but to have it sit there for another 20 years unmaintained, it's going to turn into a Lear Theater situation where to do anything with it might cost 25 to 30 million dollars to get it up to code. Whereas if you did something with it now, that might cost considerably less. And then kind of piggybacking on that, just to have some of that $40 million investment go into commercial around the district and maybe not all into improving the stadium, because it is a star bond district, at least until 2029. And so any kind of sales tax revenue that you produce from adding more commercial would only benefit you guys. So that's just another comment is, I know the original entertainment district wasn't built out as intended, and the ballpark apartments doesn't have any commercial in it at all. And so adding some kind of commercial to that district to support the ballpark would be preferred, at least by me.
Colin Robertson for the record. I would like to just follow up on something that Member Pani said a moment ago, that seems like I would like to advise the redevelopment agency to look at item 12 in the terms sheet, to look at ways to soften the non-payment clause for the city. Maybe it's in the direction of what Member Pani is suggesting, one or the other, of reclaiming some of it via lawsuit for continuing the payment throughout. But I feel like we need to advise the city and our public resources to be cautious about item 12. I also have a bunch of questions.
Okay.
But one of them is, do we have any sense of what the property tax estimate, if the stadium and land moves to a completely private enterprise, what the property tax value is on an annual basis?
So based off of, Ashley Attorney, Assistant City Manager for the record, based off of Nevada Land currently owning the land itself, they're already paying taxes as ownership, and they have possessory interest over the stadium. So they are already paying taxes on the stadium as well. Their annual tax bill is, I'll have to confirm, but it's somewhere north of like I think it's close to 800,000 or more. So they're already paying those taxes. So there would be no change to the redevelopment area from a tax standpoint or any of the other taxing agencies.
And for the time being, the county's portion of that property tax would still come back as an abatement of some kind to the Aces.
It's
not to exceed $100,000.
It's an opportunity for reimbursement, so they still pay it. And that is an agreement directly between the county and the Aces, and the city is not a party to that.
Michael Piney, follow-up question. I forgot to ask this. I saw in the staff report, it was talking about the original deal had a fire station loan agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Is that all done?
All done.
So the only obligations the city has are just
$1 million.
$1 million?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. So that was something also not made good on during the recession. And that was something that was completed payments through the restructure. And that's been all settled for many years.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Robertson, for the record, this is maybe a question for Mr. Edelstein. In the deck, we saw that there have been about $10 million in improvements, capital improvements to the stadium since 2022. Could you just outline some? I know some of them personally just from going to games, but like what did that look like over the last 4 years?
Sure, Eric Edelstein for the record. So that was the entire outfield experience. So the renovation of the outfield, new retail establishments, new kid zone, seating refurbishment through the entire stadium. There was an infield refurbishment that was in there, suite level roof renovations, picnic and party area renovations, concession frontage, concessions equipment. Hard pressed to find much of the facility that wasn't touched by that 10 million. There are new LED lights, going from the old metal halide to the LEDs. Purchase of light, purchase of light equipment for the Home for the Holidays event that we launched this year was included in that.
Glass.
What's that?
Glass.
Yeah. I'm sure there are others that I'm not thinking about now, but the sweet fascia video screens were in there as well. So all facility amenity. I guess there was also I gloss over the MLB facility standards. So upgrading lights in the batting cages, renovating lounge area, locker rooms for the teams, weight room, kitchen areas, all those types of spaces as well. So again, most of the square footage of the building has seen some type of refresh since 22.
I think they've been observed by the public generally, and I asked that in part related to this follow-up is those are impactful. $10 million is a lot of money in 4 years. The terms of this agreement also say $40 million in 10 years, 20 in 5. And that's a lot. So I'm just kind of wondering if you might outline some of the thoughts about what that might look like at this stage in, say, the 5-year span of what $20 million of capital improvements continue to look like.
Sure. Eric Edelstein for the record. So we have we're undergoing signage refresh right now. So environmental graphics and signage throughout the entirety of the facility. Our video board, for the stadium piece, our video board is likely coming to end of life here. I'm going to try to squeeze 3 more years out of it. But the main board is coming up on 10 years old now. There is some field refresh work that needs to be done, subgrade, irrigation, surface work, things like that. What else is it? Restructures and such. Not fun money to spend, but if the building ages, needing to replace those as well. I think our intention here is to find partnerships that generate new construction. It is not the intent to utilize. It's not in our intent to satisfy the obligation solely by upgrading the facility. It's to build new into the area. I guess last thing I'll note is the Simon family, as part of all this, they purchased the Park Center Tower 18 months ago, almost 2 years ago, March of 24 closed on that. And so there's going to be some work being done on that as well. Facade improvements on the first floor to incentivize retail, cleaning up, fixing the parking garage, adding new technology to make that safer, cleaner, more well lit. So that's all happening as well for the area.
Mike Brown, for the record, if Simon Property Group came forward and wanted to do, like, just hypothetically, a project on the vacant lot, south of the ballpark, would they be able to qualify for TIF financing for that? It's completely separate than this deal?
Correct. It's completely separate. And then that would be something that would come for this group for you to decide if you would like them to go onto a consultant, to go through the but-for test, and the same thing, but completely separate.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Edelstein?
Eric Edelstein for the record. I do want to make something that I've seen in public and just to clarify the line. So Simon Property Group is the publicly traded company that Herb was a co-founder of. Herb is now fully retired from any obligations to Simon Property Group. So we are entirely on the family side of the business. So all of these holdings in downtown are Simon family, where Meadowwood Mall is a Simon Property Group building. So just to clarify the separation.
That's helpful clarification. Any other questions or comments on or discussion about the motion that's on the table? to approve made by member Stitzer and seconded by member Kenny.
I just have one more comment before we vote. I think baseball is great for downtown. Stadium generates a lot of use, a lot of revenue downtown, a lot of activity downtown, all of which I think is really good. So I'm very supportive of it.
Call the question then, if seeing no other discussion or questions. All in favor of approving the motion made by member Stitzer and seconded by member Kenny to approve the staff recommendation?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Seeing none, motion approved unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Mr. Edelstein. I think now we can move on to item C. If there are board or committee member reports and announcements that we'd like to discuss prior to the next regular meeting on February 2nd. Seeing none, move to item D for future agenda items. If there are any that people would like to raise for the February 2nd meeting or beyond. I want to reiterate one is that I would like to see the Parks District Plan discussion come before this group as a meaningful topic and have that be something that we can spend some time discussing as it relates to our investments in the RDAs.
Thank you for that. We do have that coming up later this spring, but we will see if there's any way to move it up based off of your very busy agenda, but that has been scheduled.
Great.
Mike Van Houten, for the record, is the rebranding?
Rebranding is
Coming
coming
back
on
to us?
February 2nd.
Okay, cool.
We're excited for your recommendation for the RDA so they can make a decision.
Any other requests or future agenda item topics?
I haven't heard much about the bridge and how that design is progressing, the Sears Street Bridge replacement. Last meeting that I was involved in with them, they were expecting to have another meeting before the end of the year, and here we are at the end of January and haven't heard or seen anything. So I'll continue to pursue that because of my direct impact, but I'm not sure if that's something that this board cares to know much about or hear, but that could be something we're talking about.
I'd love to get like an update from RTC on the bridges in general,
Sure.
with Arlington as well.
Yep. We'll reach out to them and ask them to come before this board, and then that will help get you an update faster, maybe.
Colin Robertson, for the record, I think on that same, it's related, but on a different front, sort of, is just maybe on the next meeting or whenever we can in the next couple of meetings, an update on what's happening along the riverfront, or the Riverwalk, rather. Just seeing some comments publicly that people are unsure about that, and I think this would be a good opportunity to provide some clarification.
Very helpful. Thank you. It's as part of our capital improvement plan that we're bringing forward to this body on March 2nd. You will get an update based off of that. So I think your request is really well timed. So thank you.
Any other future agenda item topics, requests, or ideas? Anybody online, member Oliverio or member Harris? You? Okay, seeing none, then we'll move on to final public comment. This again is an opportunity for the public to make a 3-minute public comment about any of the items today. One in the room.
Vice Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I would like to know, there were some requests from this body at the last meeting, where we are at with that.
Yes. Hi, Madam Mayor, Ashley. We have those scheduled, some in February, some in March, based off of the chair. We've been working with him to identify the next few months of your agendas. So,
Okay.
Madam Mayor, you'll see some of those in February and some of those in March.
Okay, perfect, Ashley. Thank you so much. Do you have a list of those in front of you?
I don't have them in front of me, but I do have them and I can get them to you to let you know what's coming down the pipeline.
Okay, can you please make sure the board has them since it was a little bit lighter attendance because of holiday? So can you please make sure that everyone sees them so they can weigh in on some of those things? One, off the top of my head was like possible RDA extensions, also accountability with blighted vacant properties, just things like that. So I'd love for the body to make sure that they are weighing in. That would be fantastic.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Any other public comments online? Being none, then we'll move on to seek a motion for adjourning this special meeting on January 26th.
Move to adjourn. Michael
On movement. Mike
Nettie
Bennett,
Oliveria, second.
Mike beat you to it, Nettie.
Oh.
All in favor of adjournment? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. And we'll have our next meeting on February 2nd at 11 a.m. here on the 14th floor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.